right, we are convening the April 25, 2013 Sherborn Board of Selectmen's meeting. The agenda consists of 6 p.m. Town Administrator reading the agenda.
Sure. The agenda is as follows: 6 o'clock, 6:05 public comment, 6:15 p.m. Town Administrator's report, 6:30 p.m. request for a special municipal status, Pine Hill School Committee, Frank Hess here. Then Energy Committee, Michael Lesser. At 6:40 p.m. discussions about the town meeting on Articles 23, 12, and 20. 7 p.m. Town Accountant will be here for a financial update, and then 7:20 p.m. the board will break into executive session for collective bargaining and to discuss the disposition of real property.
Any additions?
I had no amendments, Paul.
I don't either, so is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the agenda as written and read.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Great.
All right. At 6:05, we start off with public comment. Paul Leach.
Just till Joan gets here, I'm co-chair of the, huh? Oh, leave it where it was? Oh, okay. I'm Paul Leach, 32 Peckham Hill Road, co-chair of the Disability Advisory Committee. One of the things that we are concerned about is handicapped access, of course, and a whole bunch of other stuff you may have seen. But tonight I want to talk a little bit about hearing disability and how we would hope that we can make it more easier for people who are hard of hearing, even in this building, because if you're sitting in the back row, it's hard to hear, and in other parts of the building. So I'd like to introduce Joan Rothney, who is hard of hearing, and has some specific comments. Joan?
Yes. Mr. Williams, Mr. Durensis, and Mr. Caruso. My name is Joan Rothney, and I live at Woodhaven Senior Housing, 2D Village Way. I'm also a member of the Disability Advisory Committee, and I am hearing impaired. I'm here this evening with Paul, who's introduced himself and also a member, and Paul will assist me if I have any difficulty hearing. So if you find me going this way, I'm asking Paul to repeat what I didn't hear. We're here tonight to bring to your attention the need for auxiliary hearing devices and to draw upon David Williams' expertise to advocate for and explain the town's responsibility to provide assistance for the hearing impaired. Now, the Department of Justice has issued revised Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA regulations, which took effect March 15th, 2011. These regulations affect the obligation of public entities, state and local government to furnish appropriate auxiliary aids and services where necessary to ensure effective communication with individuals with disabilities. I have copies of the ADA, which I'll leave for you, which will explain it in more detail. I've consulted with Pat Cassell regarding the difficulties which many hearing impaired residents have when attending meetings here in the Selectmen's rooms. Pat has gone out of her way to make every accommodation possible. Regular meetings of other boards and committees, if not being taped, do not have access to the microphones and PA system. Pat does set up mics for the COA Lifetime Learning classes, but there is no system currently set up for other regular meetings. There are a number of solutions which I have the potential of providing, which have the potential of providing an inclusive experience for hearing impaired residents of Sherborn, which need to be addressed. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
In many of my towns, we that I work for.
Can't hear you.
I work for a number of towns, and many of those towns for town meeting provide someone who speaks sign language at town meeting. Do you think we need a signer for our May 4th town meeting?
I don't, I have no answer to that question. I think that the presence of a signer would indicate a willingness to provide more inclusion for the residents who have difficulty hearing. It depends on how many people actually read and sign language.
I would say that's a good question, and whoever's listening in the public who thinks that might be worthwhile should contact the Selectman's office or David and make that wish known.
We
Because-
will accommodate anyone who's hearing impaired. So if there's anyone out there who's hearing impaired and lets us know, we will arrange for a signer to be present. That's that's federal law. We will do it. I'm just trying to find out whether this is a request for that for town meeting.
Not this evening,
Not-
no.
It's more of a general request to try to make the public and you folks aware of the need, because hearing aids, I know a number of people, even at Pilgrim Church, that has a few hearing aids and yet are hearing augmentation devices, but they're not adequate unless people do little things like speak into the microphone. And there's not enough. So just having a hearing aid for many people with low hearing doesn't solve the problem. And Joan had some figures about something that might work here with hearing augmentation. $1,300 for a system that might, and then $100 per unit that people in the audience might be able to put on so that they can hear instead of going home and waiting to hear it on TV.
And so, Paul, excuse me, this is Peter, what you're talking about
Yep.
is at meetings, not just our meeting where we're all mic'd up and we're also on camera, but you're also talking about other meetings publicly held in other rooms here in town where members who are hearing impaired might like to attend, but they can't, or they don't because they can't hear what's being spoken. And Joan sounds like she has some solutions that might work in those situations, both in this room as well as in other rooms. So it sounds like, Paul, something for us, for David to look into what the issues are, what the solutions are, and then we put it on the agenda to see if we can come up with something. I mean,
Yes, we can't, under public comment, take action tonight.
No, you can't. We understand that, but,
I do want to indicate that we understand the law,
oh yeah.
and we want to be welcoming to everyone to come to our meetings,
Right.
no matter what their situation is. And if there's something that we can do to make it better for people who are hearing impaired, I, for one, am going to do that.
Yes,
and
I think that makes
Peter
great
is going
sense.
to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So let's task David Williams, our town administrator, to work with you. If you would take the time to work with him and give him the solution that you come up with. And let's put this on an agenda when you're ready to come back with a solution.
That's exactly what we wanted. Thank you very much.
We have Karen to back them up a little, Paul?
Karen, Jewel?
Karen Jewell, Director of the Council on Aging. I just have two comments. One, it would be very helpful for our seniors for the Lifetime Learning Program, because we do hold them in here, and we get anywhere between 30 and 75 seniors. Pat does a wonderful job miking our presenters, but it does present a challenge for those who are hearing impaired when things like the heat goes on. It doesn't, that doesn't seem like it's a big issue, but if you're hearing impaired and all of a sudden you're trying to listen and then a blower goes on, it makes a big difference. The other thing that I would encourage the Board of Selectmen to look into for not necessarily this town meeting, but for future town meetings is, I attended a conference, and the speakers, there's a software program out there now where once vocalized, you can run kind of like a closed caption leader up on the screen, which folks would then be able to read. So if they couldn't actually hear what was going on, if they sat maybe in the first, 3 to 8 rows, they would be able to read it, which I think that would be a worthwhile expense.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everything you're saying. My mother, before she passed away, she was progressively more and more hearing impaired. And as a result, she was more and more reluctant to go anywhere.
Exactly.
And that was a problem, and the quality of life diminished as that took over for her.
Well,
I
thank
can
you.
respect that.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we're gonna try and remedy it.
Great, thank you very much.
Is there any further public comment? Elliot Taylor.
You're putting bark mulch around the trees here on the town hall campus. I've been telling you, you don't put bark mulch against a living tree trunk, but here you go again. You might,
David hasn't heard this, so
you might contact.
I agree with you.
Bartlett tree experts and see if they have some comments on it. But I was listening to a garden show last Sunday morning, and the expert there said, no, you don't put bark mulch against living trees. I've been telling you this for 5 years now, but here we go again. And the ones who sell bark mulch want to sell you as much as they can. When the tree dies, they can charge you to cut the tree down and charge you to put up another tree and charge you to bury it in bark mulch again. So if you want to put bark mulch around the trees, rake it back so it does not touch the trunk. But everywhere I go around, they call them volcanoes of bark mulch around these beautiful trees. And if they all died the next year, something would be done, but it may take 10 years or more, and by that time everybody's moved away. So I again ask you, please get the bark mulch back away from the living tree trunk bark. Thank you.
we're gonna ask Dave Williams to look into that.
Yeah, I remember hearing this last year, Elliot, and then I wished we had a town administrator. Now we do, because he can handle it. Beautiful.
Well, maybe he sells bark mulch.
It's not allowed under his contract.
Yeah, his contract says he works full-time for us. Doesn't have any private business interests.
Thank you.
Nancy Hess.
I just want to say, last call, this is the last selectmen's meeting before the tax bills are due. We have election coming up, we have a busy week next week. Don't forget, there are some people that are involved in town government that we haven't seen come to the counter yet, so don't get so busy with the activities next week that you forget it gets very expensive.
I'm waiting for you to give me an early pay discount.
You're not earning enough for what, keeping that in the bank. You might be saving the town some by giving it to us to put in the bank.
Any other public comment? Okay. So now we go to the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
One for each.
On the town administrator report, I'm just reporting things that have gone on over the last week. I met with Carol Jewell, Council on Aging Director, and discussed her operations with her. I met with the moderator, town clerk, town accountant, and chair and vice chair of the advisory committee to discuss town meeting procedures and logistics. Worked with Norfolk Graham on responding to a notice of noncompliance from Mass DEP regarding the transfer station. Actually, not the transfer station, but the landfill run. The situation has turned out fine after a retest was performed. Attended the planning board meeting last night to witness deliberations on the special permit for the new cell tower. Worked on some collective bargaining issues and met with the team of department heads under the Board of Selectmen's purview. A few items that got signed this week. We signed a renewal for the insurance through the Maya, Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Agency. That's been the town's insurance agent.
What's the percentage increase?
About 4%, but we'll be able to whittle that back with a cash payment in July, and also try to do some enhanced effort on the Maya rewards where they give you percentage back for focusing on certain issues of liabilities.
So that will be within the budget for 14 then?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
Just to go back on some things you mentioned. You mentioned the meeting last night with the planning board
Mhm.
and the Board of Appeals. We're very pleased to announce that the planning board and the Board of Appeals gave the permits that are necessary for the cell tower to go forward, so that's quite a milestone. There's more to be done, but it is one of those significant milestones on the road to getting the community better communications for all our residents, better public safety, and the dividend of some additional revenue for the town.
Yes.
So we thank the planning board and the Board of Appeals.
In some other business, the signed an authorization to use town property for the annual Arts and Crafts Fair on the Green. That's going to be held May 11th. There's a Massachusetts Dash Relay for the Jimmy Fund to be held on July 13th and 14th. I think that's an annual event as well. And then the Pan Mass Challenge, it's a kids' bicycle ride scheduled for May 19th. And all the insurance certificates that we needed are all in place for these events.
Now, you've approved them, or you want us to approve them?
No, I went ahead and I signed the authorizations to go ahead with.
But just on that, which I'm glad you did that, but then I was reading this little form, and it says pursuant to a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Which one is that?
Well, both, I have the Pan Mass and the Mass Dash Relay. So the form we use has that written in at the top, so I don't know whether that's something we need to amend going forward.
Yeah.
But should we do a vote on that tonight, just to, do we have to? I don't,
You might as well while you're
Might as
here, and it
well,
was on
yeah.
the agenda.
yeah, so.
Yeah.
I would move that we approve the Pan Mass Challenge Kids Ride request, as well as the Mass Dash Relay for the Jimmy Fund request. That's already been approved by all the appropriate officials, including our town administrator.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Great. Good job, David.
The last item is the library's handicap bathroom that's been under renovation is ready for public use. The signage has been ordered to put place on the bathroom exterior, and the construction debris dumpster is gone from the library grounds, if you hadn't noticed driving by.
Great
So
news.
that is good news. Yep, so that's it for the administrator's report.
Well, before we go on to the next item here, at the meeting of the planning board last night, one member could not participate because the planning board lacks a recording device. Under the rule that was discussed at that meeting, if a person misses a meeting, he can or she can participate in the next meeting as long as they listen to either an audio or a visual of what happened at that meeting. And we heard that the planning board and apparently the Board of Appeals has no such recording device. So I'm wondering if you could please get a recording device that could be used by the planning board, the Board of Appeals, the Conservation Commission, and any other board that would get the benefit of the statute. They can't use that statute because they don't have a recording device. So even though town meeting voted it in 2009, and we have it on the books, we can't use it, all for the lack of a recording device.
You don't need more than one.
So we need at least
You have
one.
three meetings in one night, you
Yes, if you have 3 meetings in one night, but let's start with one.
So one piece of equipment that a committee they would routinely record their meetings every time?
Well, certainly when someone is absent,
Okay,
then you can record the meeting,
Okay.
and at the next meeting, there's a procedure set out in the statute, which Sherborn has adopted, but apparently can't use, nobody's been
There's
able
no
to use it,
equipment.
because there's no equipment.
Yeah,
Because that's important for issues which are continuations of various topics, is how that works, I guess, John?
Yeah,
So if somebody misses a meeting right now, can't hear the recording, they can't participate in the next meeting if it's a continuation of the prior meeting?
Yes.
yeah, and as Paul, John Higley, Saddlebrook Road. As Paul said, recording or video, but the criteria also allows, if someone has a complete transcript, a
Yeah,
written transcript,
yeah.
but none of
That's
us
not gonna
type or
happen.
write that fast.
Right.
So, and we did try a recorder, but it was a single microphone, didn't work. We tried that last year, and I think we've all been in conference rooms with a sort of triangular shape, multi-directional. They work pretty well, but they may not get, if I'm sitting back here and it was on the desk, that may not
Right.
work either. But maybe it would. We'd like to
right.
give it a try at least. And the other thing is, it also, if it works, it also enables, I think the law, I'm not sure our statute, but the state says if it's a live, if someone can listen in live and hear everything and see the things, that also allows them to participate. And we do have an associate member who in our, for instance, in the cell tower, could fill in for, and did. So we were covered, but we had to have unanimous vote. And as Paul said, if we had somebody that could read the written transcript and then participate, then it wouldn't have had to be unanimous.
Yeah, that's, that equipment is $50 to $100. So
Yeah,
I
and
can
this
take
problem
care of
has
that.
to have arisen in other towns,
Right.
and other towns have solved it. So why should we have gone to all the trouble of going to town meeting, getting a town meeting vote,
Right.
setting up the statute, and then find ourselves unable to use it because
Yeah.
we didn't spend $50 to $100?
Yeah. Yeah, we've always used it as a backup. It's a small digital recording device that can record for a couple of hours on a digital chip. So you can actually offload it. Then it's a computer file and you can do anything you want with it. So
Good.
I'll get it.
Yeah.
Yes, please do.
Mhm.
All right, the next item on your list here is, remote participation? Or update on
Update on town meeting planning.
Well, I just participated in the meeting, that's all, about the logistics of the town meeting planning. But I was more prepared to talk about the remote participation.
All right. It's your report, so you do with what you want.
Last week, the board edited a remote participation, a motion for remote participation, and some questions came up about whether town meeting, whether the remote participation would apply to town meeting or committees that decide to deliberate during town meeting. Town meeting is actually exempt from the open meeting law, so committees can decide to meet on the fly during town meeting. Routinely, we post a meeting for the Board of Selectmen prior to the start time of town meeting, so that at least you're covered under the open meeting law, that you have a posted agenda and you can do other business besides town meeting stuff. But I spoke to town council today, and we thought that it might be good to add something into your controls on this remote participation that limited it to being held in Sherborn with the town-owned equipment. So I was adding this sentence, remote participation will be restricted to meetings, and the new language, held in Sherborn that are subject to and held in accordance with the open meeting law using town telephone equipment. So since town meeting is held in another town and it is also exempt from the open meeting law, the question of remote participation would be easy to answer.
Right. That
Are
makes
you
sense
okay?
to me. Yes, I think that's good, helps clarify what wasn't clear.
I had one little change,
Mhm.
editorial change, where it says using town telephone equipment.
Right?
I want to say using certain designated town
Okay.
telephone equipment, because I want to designate this thing, which was a little more expensive, but it's got a surround sound type of microphone.
So town designated telephone equipment?
Certain designated.
Oh, okay.
town
Because
That makes
we're,
good sense, right, because otherwise it could be just a phone, yeah, town phone, right.
Yeah.
Good one.
so with that, did we have any further comments? I think you said in an email that the library had voted.
They were favorable.
They were
Favorable.
all favorable, yeah,
Yeah.
all favorable comments.
Any other feedback?
No, just the library had come through.
Does anybody in the audience want to be heard on remote participation?
Could you just, Kitty Sturgis, Hunting Lane, explain the operation of remote at town meeting?
Not a lot.
Not allowed. Okay, there were so many words that were being
I'm
said, I
sorry.
didn't understand. Thank you.
So no public comment?
I think Frank, yes.
The way it is now, you're not talking about requiring a televised, right?
No,
Okay.
we took that out.
Because a lot of times, if you use it, it's because someone might be in Texas on a business meeting, and they couldn't see it anyway, so it seems to me that not having a television is a good idea, requirement.
All right, hearing no further comments, do you move to approve as amended?
I move to approve as amended. Do you want me to read it, or just so people understand it, Paul, or?
That's fine.
Okay, I move that the Town of Sherborn Board of Selectmen adopt remote participation as allowed by the open meeting law, with the following conditions in place. 1, the use of remote participation will be on an experimental, controlled trial basis for a period of 90 days, which will allow boards and committees, public bodies in parentheses, time to discuss and become familiar with the issue. The town administrator, 2, the town administrator is charged with distributing a Board of Selectmen remote participation advisory and distributing to all public bodies. 3, all public bodies are requested to review the advisory and pose questions to the administrator for any needed clarifications. Answers will be given in accordance with open meeting law, local bylaw, and/or Board of Selectmen policy. 4, the Board of Selectmen will allow public bodies to consider the advisory and vote to request authorization from the Board of Selectmen to opt out of remote participation. 5, remote participation will be restricted to meetings held in Sherborn that are subject to and held in accordance with the open meeting law using certain designated town telephone equipment. If the equipment is unavailable, remote participation will not be allowed. 6, the Board of Selectmen will review these conditions after the 90-day trial period.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Good.
This is a good experiment. It also has the side effect of helping people with disabilities. Because those who have disabilities may find it a lot easier to participate through this means. And that's one of the allowed grounds for the use. In addition to the 6 paragraphs of what we just voted, there is state law which has a number of requirements for the use of remote participation. That was reviewed by the town administrator at one of our prior meetings, but it might make sense, because this is an experimental period, for you to review that. Do you have those materials, Sandy?
Yes, yeah, I mean, no, I don't have those with me tonight.
You don't?
No. I mean, I can briefly talk on it. Wanted to. There are
Well, I
basically.
don't want to put you on the spot.
There are basically 5 criteria that remote participation can be used. So, and it has to be requested by a member of the committee, preferably in advance of the meeting, so that the chair can decide whether it's appropriate or not and meets one of those 5 criteria. And I think it's a geographic location, say you're out of town on unavoidable business, at
Personal
home because of
illness.
injury.
Yep.
I think Peter has.
Personal
something there.
disability, emergency, military service, or geographic distance. Yep.
So the chair would have, when a request comes in from a committee member, the chair would have to verify that it meets one of those criteria, and then can approve, and then preferably get whatever meeting materials are available to that person, whatever way they can, so that they can participate remotely.
And all votes have to be by roll call?
All votes have to be by roll call, and there also has to be a quorum present at the meeting location to call the meeting to order.
Including the person who's chairing the meeting
Right.
has to be present.
Yeah.
Can't chair the meeting remotely.
So, in this advisory that we talked about, it'll be regurgitating the Attorney General's handbook on remote participation, basically.
Well, and one of the conditions I read here, David, that you'd sent out earlier was that all members of the body who are participating remotely and all persons physically present at the meeting location must be clearly audible to each other, which further reinforces the need for the fancy equipment as opposed to run-of-the-mill squawk boxes.
Right. Some other things that could happen, say there's a call dropped, the meeting is supposed to continue.
Okay.
You're not supposed to stop the meeting and try to fix the equipment. The meeting's supposed to continue as it was going. And that's something we'll put in the advisory.
Good.
So the point for our audience and for our listeners at home is that there's state law with its requirements, and then we have adopted the remote participation with conditions. And the primary condition is that the special equipment that we bought will be used for that 90-day period. All right, enough on remote participation. Next was
The warrant.
payroll warrant number 43, and
I
here are the
move we
numbers.
approve payroll warrant 43 in the amount of $57,044.75. It's been reviewed and approved by the appropriate bodies, including David.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Let's get our people paid.
There you go.
They all do
Thank
that
you.
quick.
Yeah, easy come, easy go. Not.
All right, we have, our 6:30 agenda item is a request for special municipal status, that's special municipal employee status, for the Pine Hill School Committee and for the Energy Committee. Actually, wasn't it the Pine Hill School Building Committee?
Yeah.
You want to speak on this?
Guess so. Frank Hess, South Main Street.
Keisha Lifton, Maple Street.
And you have the request before you. It's something we've talked about for some time. You made an official, formal request in January to the chairman, and then in February, I think everybody on the board received copies of their request, because right now you have several people giving a great deal to the community who do lots of extra work, but yet they can't work in town because they are not special municipal employees, and they might have to represent people before other boards. And so I think it's important to support your volunteers to be able to do this. In fact, my suggestion would be that you look at any new committee that you form, like even ad hoc committees, because some of these people might be restricted from participating if they are members of other boards. So, Keisha, you have anything you want to add?
No, I think you pretty much covered it.
My only question is, I thought our chairman, Tom Twining, who by the way remains in intensive care at Mass General, I thought he put these on the agenda and we voted them already.
No, I don't recall that we did.
I don't even call it the building.
No, and I think Frank's been repeatedly trying to get us to address this for the Pine Hill School Building Committee. So,
Okay.
it all makes sense to me. But just one question I would have, we're not increasing the town's exposure in any way by doing this, are we, Paul? I mean, these people would normally be covered under our existing bylaws anyway. which would also cover them under our existing insurance policy. So I just want to confirm that we have no additional risk exposure, because I think the benefits, assuming no additional exposure, the benefits far outweigh any risks that might be involved here, I think. This is
Every
a
other
great thing to
board
do.
and committee in town has that designation, except these two committees.
Except these two committees. And this is where we have particular expertise that's necessary because folks are otherwise restricted. So I would move that we grant special municipal employee status to both the Pine Hill School Building Committee as well as the Energy Committee.
Second. Any discussion? Any public comment on this? All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're almost catching up. We had a discussion slated dealing with town meeting.
Let's kind of do these in reverse order, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Because the last two items under the 640 agenda item turn on whether or not you can participate
That's correct.
under the
Yes,
state conflict of interest.
And I did consult with town council, and in her opinion, I cannot. I must recuse myself because it's a presumed financial interest of some sort, being in a butter and a resident on Whitney Street for both of these items. So I can't even discuss it further.
I see. Well, I'm in favor of supporting advisory on both these items, but I'm a vote of one. And that's, I can even second my own motion. So that pretty much takes those two agenda items off our agenda.
Right.
At least unless or until we have a third member present. So that leaves us with Article 23. And on this, we've been hoping that we could get the wisdom of our chair, Tom Twining, on this, because this was the subject near and dear to his heart.
Yep.
As I mentioned before, he remains in intensive care.
This Article 23 is what, in 20 words or less?
It is to grant additional powers to the town administrator. Advisory recommended no action. And at the pre-town meeting, that's still the position of advisory?
Yes.
No action. So, in our prior discussions, we had indicated that we didn't seem like we were going to make a floor fight out of it.
Well, the question becomes what we do, if anything, I guess, is where I'm still trying to get comfort as well as a better understanding where you might consider it. But here's why. Advisory's no action motion or recommendation is on the article that's in the warrant that was approved. It's the original draft warrant article, even though, as you recall, we did sit through the first day of advisory's public hearings, get some feedback, realized there were some areas that needed some clarity, and we got that clarity, working with town council, and came forward with another draft to advisory, kind of at the 11th hour, so they didn't have enough time, perhaps didn't have enough time to fully read, review, and understand what was put before them. But nonetheless, their no action motion and their description of how they came to this no action recommendation is based on the original, the old 23, not the current draft of 23. So I don't know if you had a chance to read what they wrote, but they're referring to items which we've already pulled off the table in the revised version. So the voters will be confused. The voters, so what I infer is that the writer of this for advisory remains confused about what we're trying to do in these various articles. including, we've already decided, and we even were explicit at their public hearings, that we weren't supporting or really going to do anything further with 24, 25, and 26, that we were really just talking about 23, and we revised 23 to reflect the comments that came from folks at those public hearings. But that doesn't come out in anything you read in this description of the rationale behind advisory's recommendation. And it shows even people who have spent a lot of time deliberating and trying to understand remain confused. So to the extent we want to try and provide some reduction in confusion is one question. The second question is whether we do anything on the floor of town meeting to either put forward some or all of the revised 23 that we were all in support of, or something much smaller, which David has suggested, something that just says, at least enable him under a special act to be able to approve the warrants so that we don't have to meet every week. And that is certainly a digestible bite of Article 23 that might be worth putting forward. So I put that to you for your consideration, Paul.
Can I say the
Yeah.
comments here?
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
very much mindful of the fact that on the Saturday that they called this article for discussion. If you recall, I moved that I asked for them to grant us an extension till the
Right.
following day because we couldn't have our team present.
Right.
We didn't have the representative from Collins there, we didn't have town council there. David hadn't finished his work as to the analysis of what the savings would be if he was put in charge of some additional power. So we went forward, in my mind, on a very preliminary basis, but I guess in their mind, that was it.
Right.
When we came back at the next hearing, when we had our full team,
It was already a done deal.
well, that was my impression.
Yeah.
I mean, they may have listened, they may not have listened.
No, I think they listened, but it was a lot to absorb, digest, and decide upon. I mean, that's asking a lot of it's a meaty topic and controversial. Let him read. This isn't gonna help our ratings though, is it? Although when Ruth gets up, that's gonna help our ratings.
All right, so basically their recommendation is that the proposals are not in a state of adequate readiness to be presented to the voters for an informed decision. And I think you're correct that subsequent to that Saturday, we did have Collins, Town Council, and David prepare additional materials, and there were changes made that in the opinion of Town Council, resolved all these issues.
Right,
And she so said that at the
the Tuesday hearing,
Tuesday hearing.
Tuesday night hearing, yeah.
But all that being said, what's your proposal?
Well, I don't know whether we want to take I'm not proposing anything yet, I just want to discuss whether we want to take some time at town meeting to talk about what we were trying to do, use it as a kickoff for something that might be done in the future if we're choosing not to do anything at town meeting. But I do think, at a minimum, we should look at trying to do the warrant-only piece, warrant signing only by the TA piece, because that's an administrative burden on the Board of Selectmen.
Well, the problem with that, from my point of view, is that that's a small piece of a larger home rule petition.
Yeah,
And if you go with, a small home rule petition in year one, and then another
the piecemeal
petition
approach, yeah.
in year two, this is going to clog up the legislative process. It's going to lead to confusion at the
state level as to what's going on in the town of Sherborn, that we're, why don't we get our house in order and come forward with,
Right.
with what we want to do.
Well, that makes us another year of every week doing these payrolls unless we change these weekly payrolls,
Well,
which my
part of that
understanding is we can't.
Was that we wanted, as part of the collective bargaining with the unions, is to convert everybody to bi-weekly and not have any weekly payrolls in Sherborn.
Right. You would, right now, you have a weekly payroll, and you also have accounts payables that also come through.
Yeah, but accounts
But
payable don't.
They can be
delay those a
rerouted to
week.
go every other week.
Yes.
Right,
So it's really only the pay.
right.
It's
So-
basically the wage law that says you have to pay people a certain
Right.
number of days of when they're supposed to get paid.
So with the two unions that we have, that would be something that would have to be bargained, and from what I understand in the past, it has been put on the table and has not been successfully bargained. So,
I think my recollection was that they wanted to not impact bargain it, but to include it in the negotiations for,
we should talk about,
That later.
yeah.
okay, but what I'm saying is there's another solution to
Okay.
that piece of it. I'm not sure what
Otherwise,
to.
we're meeting every week, and I don't mind that, Paul, nothing, I like seeing you.
Oh, I
every
love
week,
seeing you every week. What great fun. But,
But do we want to, here's the other piece that sort of gnaws at me a little bit, is that what we came forward with on 23, we think is in the best interest of the town.
correct.
And it was a small number of people at those hearings who were paying attention. They're all good people. They're also looking for the best interest of the town. But it was 25 people making the decision that this won't happen on behalf of 4,000 residents. Do we want to give the opportunity of the 600 people that are going to be there on Saturday, May 4th?
600.
Oh, wait, no, it's just 100, isn't it, at best? At best. Where you count people twice, you start seeing double, yeah. Yeah,
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
600 people?
wouldn't that be something? But you know what I'm saying, in that a small group or controlling the direction of the town. Granted, what we're doing is a long-term change to the town, and the town has a 370-year history or whatever it is. We've got 370 more years to look forward to, so if it doesn't happen this year, it's not the end of the world, but it's 25 people are really making the decision on behalf of 4,000 plus people.
Well, my concern is that some group, whether a citizen group or advisory, someone has to catch the balls. We're throwing, use this analogy.
And we're not
last time.
seeing that.
We're-
Well, we
we're
did,
quarterbacks here. We're
we could,
throwing the ball.
we clearly could have done a better job of playing the field and so forth in advance, but we didn't. But we don't, I'm saying that we don't need to go there. Here we are today. It is what it is, as Coach Belichick would say,
So you want
I don't
to-
know what I want. I want to hear your feedback. You're expert on town meetings. This is my first one as a selectman.
Well,
And
my
I've got-
feeling is that the selectmen should not be leading on this issue, because
Huh.
we've already led on this issue at great lengths, and someone else needs to come forward. And if someone else came forward and was ready to pick up the ball, I would do what I could to help that along, but how much can this board do?
Well, we accomplished a lot in the 2 days of the public hearings of advisory, because we educated people, we got some feedback, we made the changes.
Well, let's,
That we really didn't have enough dialogue at this table early on in the game, nor did we have enough dialogue, in my view, from the audience on this topic at this table prior to the hearing. So we were educating people, telling them what we're trying to do, finding that we had some omissions and errors and so forth in the thing, and fine-tuning it as we went along. Yes, we spent a lot of time at it. Yes, we've been talking about it. Yes, we've had these groups in, and they've presented to us the reports. The reports have been available. All of the right things, but I guess I'm seeing how difficult it is to make change in this town.
Well, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Well, here are some random thoughts. It seems pretty clear to me that eventually this change will happen because it is so much in the town's interest.
Right.
And that is going to percolate in everybody's mind. As a rancher who has cattle, I know I can bring the cattle to water, but I can't make them drink. But I can keep bringing them to water, and sooner or later, they're going to drink. And I can sit there till I'm blue in the face telling them, they need a drink, this is their only opportunity to drink. I can tell them all that. But if they don't drink, they don't drink. But sooner or later, they will. And people sometimes need things to percolate.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that.
And,
we're seeing that for sure.
and sort of settle in and kind of think things through. That's point number one. And point number two is that it seemed like there was a lot of emotion about this issue.
Mm-hmm.
When I think from your perspective and mine, this is just a business decision. How do we save, I think Dave said he could save $65,000 if he could manage the function. Whatever the number is, there was some savings there. And we are constantly looking for ways to either save money or generate revenue. So we're kind of like doing our job just from a business point of view. Yet it became so personal. And I don't know how to undo that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think at the end of the day, I have no burning desire to make this happen right away. I think it makes great sense for the town. I think people do, we clearly have seen how much people need to think about it, deliberate, and, digest it. The other thing I think we have is the opportunity to let our thoroughbred do some running first here and let him get his feet wet on these issues.
So
let him run with it. And I wouldn't be prepared to say, geez, let's do a task force or a committee to implement the Collins report and the DOR report. I think that's premature. If we're not going forward with this, which the town doesn't seem to want to do right now, I'd rather see David get his arms around things a bit and then figure out what we do to bring something like this forward at the next time, the next opportunity.
Well, let's test two ideas. One is whether we go forward with this or we don't go forward with this. It might make sense to use the opportunity that town meeting presents to further educate the community.
Right.
And we know that the outside consultants say, what was the quote from Kobayashi, that the way we're organized is unnecessary, undesirable, and expensive. And we could bring him and have him say that to the community. I mean, here's an outside professional who doesn't have a dog in this fight.
Right.
Doesn't have horse in this race, whatever the cliche is. We have DOR. We have estimates from Dave that he thinks he can manage it in a way that would save money. You put all this together, maybe people need to hear that at town meeting. So maybe a presentation of some kind. So that's an idea to think about.
Mm-hmm.
The other is, let's just test this idea of a committee, because a lot of people keep talking to me about a committee. There's this sense that if there was more than just the two of us.
Right.
You and I have listened to this for a year or maybe
Right.
2 years.
Right.
So for us, we're familiar with it. Well, a lot of people out there aren't. They don't live and breathe the job the way you do and I do, and Tom did. So if there was a group of people, people with stature, people who, people recognize have integrity and so on, had that committee and let us convince that committee. If we can't convince that committee, then it isn't time for it. But if we can convince them, then those people, I mean, it's great to have outside consultants, but it's also great to have people in the community who have looked at it and who could say, we consider the pros and cons and we see that, this has merit.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of some kind of committee or task force or whatever the nature of it, the group that does this actually becomes. It was suggested to me that even somebody makes puts forth something to replace this on town meeting floor that calls for the creation of such a committee. But I'm not necessarily in favor of something like that. I think I'd rather see us get our feet wet a little bit so that we have a better sense from a town administrator's perspective what the challenges are and the right things to do from the recommendations of the DOR and the Collins and others that are even our recommendations. And then from that, spring forward with the right makeup of a group to carry the ball forward. That's how I'd rather see that play out than see it a town meeting article decision. But maybe maybe I'm just one person.
Two other thoughts. I think it's important that the Board of Selectmen work hard at a good relationship with advisory.
Right.
Because I was on advisory, you were on advisory, and boards should work together, and we should pay them a lot of respect. So it should be a serious step for us to try and split amongst ourselves and try and overcome advisory's recommendations. Now, I've done that in the past, I have to confess. As a selectman, we have in the past succeeded in overcoming advisory's recommendations. But it's not a thing to do lightly. And I learned from those times that you really want to pick your battles.
Right.
The other thought is that we went through a very serious effort to hire the very best town administrator that we could. And I think we made a commitment to Collins and to our town administrator that we would fight the fight to empower him. And that's one of the reasons why he's here, is that he sees a future here, not just being the guy that mopped the floor and turned off the lights at night.
You do that though, right?
But somebody who's actually going to be able to use his talents.
Yes.
The analogy I used, I think, at one of the hearings was that if you hire a Tom Brady and you pay a Tom Brady, but then you tell him you're going to sit on the bench because we don't trust you to give you the ball, it's all very frustrating because we have a guy that we really want to set loose, see what he can do. Right. And we can't really do that because we're not giving him the powers that he needs to do the things that we think he can do.
So these are all stray thoughts that,
Right.
you know, they're not, I don't have a conclusion as to what to do. I think it would make sense if you were willing to address town meeting on behalf of the board,
Sure.
to at least clarify
Well,
where
and
we
I
are
could
and
do
what
an
we're
abbreviated
accomplishing.
version of that little PowerPoint I did, or at least that type of messaging to describe how we got to where we were at and some of the steps we did to bring it even a little further, but, you know, it seems like we need to do a little bit more homework on the part of the town to see where it wants to go. And just speaking of advisory, I talked to my friend Mark Brandon today, and he was wondering whether we were going to do something try to do something in place of their recommendation. And he wasn't doing that in a confrontational manner. He was half expecting that we might want to do something along the lines of some version of the revised 23. So but I don't want to fight that battle at this stage, and I appreciate absolutely you want to pick your battles. I think this battle is unlikely to be won at this stage of the game, but we'll win the war in the long term.
Oh, yes, I mean, to me, there's no question about that. It's just
So I think education, I'm all for that. So if we can put something, you know, talk about what we're doing here in a cogent way to help educate those people who only now are getting some appreciation for all of this by reading what came in their mail and showing up to town meeting, mostly to talk about budget, but then they're looking and saying, what the heck are you guys doing up at that table? You know, we can straighten that out a little bit. It's an opportunity to build trust, respect, and so forth in the Board of Selectmen as well as other leaders. And also David, they say, okay, we got the right guy. He can do the job. He'll grow with it, and we'll make it better for him. I think that's a win-win for everybody. I don't know what you're thinking. Here we are talking about you again, and you're right there. I mean, don't you think that's a good approach? And you know, the issue of the warrant signing piece, I get what Paul's saying. You know, that piecemeal approach is probably not the best thing to do with the state.
yeah, I don't want to use up, I mean, we have,
Political capital, that way, yeah, I
Right.
understand.
We have
Yeah.
why use on something that's so,
No, and we're together every week, as I say. That's great. Great.
the two caveats to this is that if you know, if citizens got together and said, you know, hell, we want to save some money here, we see that we can save some money, it looks like
Right.
a significant amount every year, and they want to fight it, and they want to, you know, take on the issues, then I would reconsider where we're at.
Well, do you want to give it one last week? Taking final action on it tonight was only if we were really going to do something in place of that.
Well,
on town meeting.
That brings us to the idea of, you know, just, right now, it's no action.
Right.
I'm not opposed, I mean, I would like somebody to come forward and say, you know, this is so good, let's go with the latest town council version. That would be my preferred choice.
Right.
And have them fight, and I'd be happy to provide, you know, technical, legal support, whatever they need. But the sort of a minimal response would be, well, why not create a committee of some people to report back next year who would be, you know, good people that the community would listen to. And that way it would be like trying a case to a jury.
Well, I'm happy to commit to doing that and saying that we would commit to creating some group, committee, task force, or whatever, comprised of types of folks yet to be determined. I think by the time we get around to that, we'll have a new member up at the table, and we'll be able to reflect his thoughts as well. I think that's important that we do that, rather than committing to a specific structure at town meeting. I don't know that I'm prepared to do that. I'm prepared to commit that we would do something.
Well, the
Of that
point
nature.
of a committee would be to have people who are not otherwise soldiers in the war that seems to be going on.
Yes, yes.
That have, open mind. That's why I say it's kind of like a jury. It's one of the things I do for a living is trying to present a case to a jury and see if the jury will find a verdict one way or the other. And we could do that with town meeting and have town meeting be the jury. We could do it with a committee, present the case. They might decide yes, they might decide no. But a group of citizens who, just an idea.
Yeah, no, I think that some group, not so interested parties, if you will, figure out what's the right thing to do, what's the best thing to do, and come forth with the action plan and the right words and so forth for the next time we have a town meeting.
Yeah, just to pick a little issue here, we have said from the get-go, and I think Collins has said, and DOR has said, protect your current incumbents. And yet, every time we try to protect the incumbents come and say, you're not really protecting us. And so I've asked several times, well,
What more protection do you need?
right,
Yes, right.
and that's a very difficult conversation.
It is.
Because I think they're reluctant to tell us what they really need, because then they'll think we'll give it to them, and then that might make it more likely for this thing to happen. But if there are intermediaries who, we generally care about the people who are occupying these positions. I don't want to harm anybody with this thing. I'm trying to look 10, 15, 20 years down the road. How should this town work better? And I noticed on your presentation, the thing you put right on the...
Yeah, on the front and the last page as well.
Yes.
It's the boxes in the org chart, not the people.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, but it's a very hard thing.
It's still personal when it's impacting your area. I understand that.
Yes. I don't know how to get beyond that.
Well, that's a difficult thing.
So let's at least do a presentation.
Okay.
Let's continue this. Maybe at some point Tom will be able to participate, maybe not.
Right.
Maybe between now and town meeting, there'll be other developments. Maybe some other group will have some ideas.
Okay.
Continue to be open for
And
people who have suggestions.
I will alter, Paul, I'll just tweak the presentation I have, which also puts in some sort of the commitment, concept for a committee or a group as well, and I'll give it to David and get his input, and if he cares to share it, that would be great too, right?
Well, town council will be at the meeting, and she can say
Yes,
that she's rewritten everything and
right,
fixed all of the issues that people have raised.
right.
Do you
Should
want
we
to
put
have?
that on the website? The revised version of Article 23?
Sure, why not?
I think that would be good, just so that it's there if people want to refer to it, because, this is the latest draft of the Article 23. That's the 326 one, that's correct. Yeah, so,
Do you want Collins there?
that's worth asking about, isn't it? Yeah, I thought what Dick said was quite meaningful, And he puts it in layman's terms
He's
that most people
offered,
can appreciate.
I had a conversation with him, and he offered to come to town meeting
I think that's great.
if we wanted him.
The question is whether, well, we can use him on Article 24, right? We have 5-minute slots.
No, I would see this as a chance to educate the community
Right.
that there are alternative ways to organize the town in a way that it's believed by our consultants and by our town administrator would save money every year going forward. And then just leave it out there. Elliot?
Just a reminder, the advisory committee is recommending no action.
Correct.
So that'll be the motion on the floor. So you will have to convince the meeting to vote no
To no
on their
action.
no action. And then you will have to come in with your recommendation.
I think
If-
we're saying
No.
we're not going down that road. We're gonna use the motion simply to take the
Educate.
occasion to provide further education.
They wouldn't be offering an amendment, is what they're saying.
So, well, there's gonna, if we vote yes to the advisory recommendation, no action, then that's it.
But you'll be smarter about it because we'll be presenting to you why and what we're trying to do, what we were trying to do and why, and what we're gonna do for next steps to do it so that next time you have an opportunity to vote on the matter at the next town meeting, you'll be better educated and the town will have done a lot of its homework with this committee or group.
So you're recommending, along with no action, that there be a committee appointed to look into this further?
No, we're recommending, we're gonna just take the occasion to explain why it makes sense for a community to look at its organization in a way as recommended by consultants to eliminate what they say is unnecessary, undesirable, and expensive ways to do business.
So it'll be,
Prior to the vote, and it's informational only, but we're
it'll
not,
be up to the selectmen to get a committee for next year. And we will not vote this at town meeting. The only recommendation is advisory says no action
Correct,
now.
correct.
And
But once they make that motion, there's a call for discussion. And under discussion,
Right.
we'll do
there's
a,
offer to make an,
There's probably no hope of overturning it, their recommendation to take no action at this meeting.
I don't think that's true, that there's no hope. I think, what I'm trying to say is that I value the relationship with advisory. I want a good working relationship with advisory, that we're looking long-term. I also value the relationship with our office holders and our incumbents, and they seem disturbed and upset about what we've been doing. And so it makes sense for people to take a breather on some of those issues and let things calm down. But the idea is, the strength of an idea grows over time. And many great ideas, whether it's, the American Revolution or I could mention a whole bunch of examples, but I don't want to get into political stuff. But sometimes, an idea is like a seed that gets planted in the ground, and it takes time to grow. People to appreciate it and see that it's not really as threatening as it might appear at first look.
Wait a while, and people think it's their idea, and they'll go with it.
that's always the way to go.
Something I
Yeah,
said 10 years before.
that's right.
So anyway, again, the advisory committee's recommendation is no action, and that's probably what will happen.
Correct.
Nancy?
Are you going to, before you do your presentation, are you going to say that you are supporting the advisory recommendation? Because if you do a presentation, there's a positive spin, when they've done no recommendation, the voters are going to be confused as to the purpose of your presentation. You're going to be saying, so are you looking for us to do something here, or
I think that, from my perspective, thinking about how I'm gonna go at it, Nancy,
Well, you ought to declare a position. That's what people are going to be interested in. Are you taking a position on the article?
I think our position is that the article ought to be adopted. But we are not going to make that motion at this time. We're looking for something that's going to be for decades ahead. If it happens now or happens next year,
What's the position you're taking at town meeting? You're saying you want to educate, but what is the position you're taking for this town meeting?
Are you going to vote a position, or, I think that's what she's asking, on Article 23, you're gonna vote a position?
Well, we
or-
haven't voted a position, like we've
On-
done on all these other articles.
Right.
We haven't done that yet. We might wait a week, Paul,
Yeah.
You may or may not.
just in case there's more input, but
I don't think we affirmatively support
a no action.
no action vote.
Right.
The issue for us is,
Do we have an
do we
alternative?
contest it?
Right. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna contest it, but it is we're gonna take the 5 minutes to educate, okay? Because I'm sure people will be confused who haven't been paying attention, as some have been paying attention, like you, Nancy. And so we wanna help eliminate that confusion, to help start them thinking about what the challenges are that this article was trying to deal with, and look forward towards the future. So we're setting the groundwork towards the future.
Well,
So,
the conversation that you've had tonight has been a good one, because number one, it's the first time that there seems to be any recognition that there hasn't been citizen participation in the decisions that have been made. We've had a lot of recommendations through the years from various things. The one that stands out most in my mind is when the state came and told us to spend money widening the road, and they would give us $2 million to widen the road, and we chose not to do that. These were recommendations, and the DOR came in and said to you, these are recommendations. You know your community best, you need to pick and choose. But the impetus of everything that's come out is, how do we implement all these recommendations without having the input from the citizens in the community about what they embrace of those recommendations? And it seems like everybody wants to stay away from that discussion. They just want to know how to implement all of these recommendations, when perhaps there are things that are, we should know what the trade-offs are, whether it's going to save us money or what's the trade-off for some of these things. And that's why DOR, when they came in, said you should have a government structure committee that works on this and comes up with a recommendation. So the talk about getting more citizens' input is encouraging, because I think it's important in the process, and that's the big piece that's been missing in this from the get-go.
so it's a good thing what we're talking about.
It's a good thing that you're talking about getting citizens
Yes,
involved.
understand.
But, I think you need to be clear about where you're going, because people have a mistrust. There's no question that people have a mistrust. And if you get up there to give an educational speech, people need to know what your conclusion is before you start.
I understand. Yeah.
And whether that conclusion is, gee, we want to overturn this and we want to put a new motion in, or whether, okay, we're accepting advisory's recommendation for this year, we'd like to work on this and get some citizen input. That's a different tone, and that's going to have a different kind of reception from the people who are listening.
I do want to say something about the so-called mistrust. I think we need to elevate our discussion and be a little more civil. There are certainly soldiers in the fights that go on here that have feelings one way or the other about who they trust or who they don't trust. But that doesn't really help advance the debate, and it gets into the situation where we see in the Senate and the House of Representatives where people don't trust the president and the president doesn't trust the speaker, and what does that really mean at the end of the day? We all have to work together. Those who are the soldiers fighting amongst ourselves with these different issues, that's just not a productive way to go. Much better to keep our conversation on policies and not on personalities and not on that kind of personal issue. Trust is a very personal issue to everybody. Let's stay away from personal issues if we could. Keep the conversation on away from people, away from those kind of things, and let's talk policy and process.
Your report was about building trust, and one of the things that came out of the report was the trust has to be built through experience with a town administrator, and the political process here, you have to build that trust if you want to move forward with some of these things. So when you start out, it's the confusion that's been with all of the articles that are there, it's just gonna be carried forward unless you are clear about what you are doing when you're getting up to educate.
That's the challenge.
That's the challenge.
I'll do my best.
Is there anything more we need on this?
I don't think
For
so,
tonight?
Paul. I think we're good. I think,
All right, so,
so we don't take any, we're not taking any action. I'll do my tweaking, give it to David,
well,
give his input.
I would move that we do not support the advisory committee's action of no action, but that we not seek to overturn it at this point. Would you rather hold off until Thomas?
No, it's not for Tom. It's just whether there's any, you know, one of the things you threw out there, Paul, was whether there was anybody else that might want to pick up the ball and run with it.
One Wes Welker could make a huge difference.
That's right. So if there's a Wes Welker out there that comes forward in the next week, but that being said, I guess, if you, to be technical, I agree, take no action on the Article 23 that's in this warrant. Because we like the one that's been revised that isn't in here, but this is the one they have to take action on. That's just a slight technical view of it.
Oh, I don't agree with that technical view.
Okay?
A warrant is only an agenda item, just like our agenda for tonight's meeting. And anybody, as long as they're within the scope of that article, can prepare a motion. Advisory can pick and choose between all these articles,
Okay,
whatever they wanted.
okay.
They don't have to rely on us to prepare a cleaner or better version. They have equal access to the town
All right, so
council.
what you're saying is the Article 23, as we envision it, which is in the 326 draft that was presented to advisory on that Tuesday for their public hearing, we think that's a good one. That's got the town council seal of approval and corrected all the errors and omissions and whatnot, and helped clarify things that were confusing. And that's our Article 23 that we think they're also taking no action on. If you, assuming that, then I second your motion.
Just with this caveat, going back to what I said about Wes Welker, if there's a group, whether they're part of advisory or not part of advisory or citizens, who want to do a motion under any one of these articles
Right.
that accomplishes 1 or 10 of the things that are recommended, and they're prepared to carry the issue and make the presentation, I would
I think
not
that
hesitate to
support and all that, yeah.
to give them whatever support they can.
Yep.
Because as David had mentioned just a few minutes ago, that some of the stuff is so simple, so no-brainer, like the ability to sign the warrant, that you would think that someone out there would say, well, some of this isn't bad. If you have 10 things that you're presenting and you don't like one, why throw everything out when all you need to do is to say, we'll support 9 out of 10? Or if there's even one good thing, support the one good thing.
Right.
But the notion, let's discard everything, that's a pretty extreme position on this article and on 24 and 25, 26, whatever they are. That there's not one good idea in any of those articles that would...
And I don't think anybody's saying there isn't one good idea, but as for a special act, it requires careful crafting, and we've got the carefully crafted version at last, and that's where we're at. But, you know, advisory, they have to act on all of the above, which they did. I respect them for that. I think they gave it their best attention, consideration. Were I in their shoes, I might be doing the same thing. Because it's a different perspective than we have up here.
I know, we were there. We were there.
I think the problem with that, no matter what good is in there. It would have been lovely if it had started out with trying to get the ability to have them sign it. If you wrote down the no action motion, any motion can go on the table, and I think that uncertainty would be troublesome.
Well, one of the things I'm trying to do is to repair what seems to be, or bridge, let me use it that way, bridge the gap between what looks like groups that have developed some what's the right word for it? Some butting of heads back and forth. I think as a selectman, I got to look not just at what's good for the town long term, because I can see this is going to happen. It's going to maybe happen later. But I think it's also important to build the bridges to all the groups in town, and eventually, I'm very hopeful that the people who have a vested interest in these different positions will be part of the team that comes up with a solution that works for everyone. So my goal would be to see if we can build those bridges, find common ground, see if we can actually move the community forward in a way that's not a pitched battle on the floor of town meeting with everybody bringing their friends there and trying to see who brought the most. That's not a way to solve a problem. And let's figure out a way that works for everybody and that everybody can see, you know, this is in the best interest of the town and it really does protect everybody. And we really don't want to step on anybody's toes. And we want everybody comfortable. And I don't think that that everybody's there. So that's why I'm kind of slowing down here a little bit and saying, I don't want to force something on anybody. Let's let things heal. Let's build those bridges. Let's let the town administrator prove that he can actually throw the ball down the field without it being a wild pitch. Let there be healing. Let's come together. And with some time, maybe we can improve communication and figure out a way to do this in a way that's successful for everybody. So there's no winner and no loser.
I have to say I have a lot of confidence in our new town administrator. I was encouraged when I heard his interview, and he talked about having a strategic plan for a change, and that the process was important. And I think that he's the kind of communicator that he doesn't need to have the things that you have in this proposal at this time to be effective and to be able to function in the manner that you want to see him function. So I think Sherborn has a lot of hope in our new town administrator. I know he has a lot of burdens on his shoulder, but I don't think it all hinges on whether or not Article 23 passes at town meeting.
Katie Sturgis.
I don't want to beat a dead horse right now, but my one comment is that I just received the copy of the 326 draft. I think it would be detrimental to the town not to have a copy of what you are proposing. And I haven't read this, and I'm sure it has some good stuff in it. But I think the 5 minutes that you would have at town meeting is an excellent time for education. And don't try to ram this down the town this year. I prefer to have the education. Thank you.
I think that's where we're at, Kitty.
Yep.
That's what we've been talking
Yep.
about.
Well, I've been listening to that, but I just wanted to bring this.
Thanks, Kitty.
All right, can we move on? Okay. We have the town accountant.
Yeah, I just wanted to say before we went into the town accountant that we also have town council here. So I don't know if you want to start with the town accountant on the report, or if you want to bump that to another night. It's up. I just wanted to bring up the option. Okay.
Yeah, if we've brought her out and,
Right. No, I agree. I
and
just
she's
wanted to
here.
give you a heads up.
Yeah, let's bring her up 5 minutes, Ruth. Want to do that? Can we do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And I had some questions for her that she's answered, and I'll just follow up on those questions, just in this environment.
Yep.
Okay? How's that?
Okay.
So you did another monthly report through the 9
did.
months of
Everybody-
March. That's great. Ruth, thank you. It's good to get those. It was interesting reading, and I appreciate your answering the 12 questions I sent you this morning in a timely manner. One of the issues I questioned was, we've gone to something on the Concom salary that the fees were intended to support the town picking up the full salary there as an appropriation, where in years past it was half of the salary or some
Right.
percentage of the
Yep.
salary. And so I think that's just worth you and David looking further into that, because it was always my understanding that the change was contingent upon, or not contingent, but counted on the fees covering the additional appropriation that the town was picking up. So I think let's look back at the facts a little bit further, okay?
Okay.
Because I think, I don't agree with I'm not sure I agree with what you're saying in your
I
response.
just don't
there.
remember that being part of it.
Right, so let's just look back into that, because that was my impression,
Okay.
all right? On the, on the question that I had about missing the ADESA permit fee, so the numbers you show no ADESA permit fee in this fiscal year so far. Or
No,
did you
we haven't
revise
gotten
them?
anything this year.
So we
we've got
haven't gotten
nothing this
anything
year.
this,
No.
so are we,
The
but we're not
catch-up
missing
that I did
anything
on the last report was from 2010.
from way back when?
Yeah.
So are they missing something in the sequence, or the
Well,
timing is appropriate?
according to Gino's email that we've been going back and forth with, they were expected to pay something this spring.
Okay.
So far, I haven't seen
So you're
anything.
expecting to see it sometime?
Yeah.
All right. And you are looking very hard at what you're showing for supplementals, and you'll have that
Yes.
nailed down by
This
a
week.
week from Saturday.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And you work with David to look at some
Yep.
things, including one of the things you were looking at, considering was the fuel overage and how that best gets handled as either supplemental or reserve fund
Right.
transfer, because there's room in that budget right now.
Yep.
And I remain confused about what you were talking about, so you're gonna work with David on
On
CM&D,
CM&D. Yep.
payroll and expenses, because that's pretty confusing to me. The point I was trying to make on the transfer station, the Wheelabrator thing,
Yep.
was to be sure we have 12 months in there, because there was one of the recent years, we had 11
know.
and 13 or something.
So I sent
And,
you that spreadsheet. I don't know if you had a chance to
Yeah,
look at it.
I did, so you factored in
That
4 months
factors
remaining
in
of that,
12
yes.
months
And
each of,
that's all the right
Right.
budgeted amount. All right. In my recollection of what we were gonna show on that regional out of district is different than your recollection. So we gotta work for getting that disclosed better, because that page is a little confusing. But we can talk
I remember
offline
Mark
about that.
saying to
Yeah,
leave it
but
as
they're the
is.
town's numbers, so he's part of the town. But anyway, it's confusing as it sits right now, because if you look at your little footnote, it has the same line item heading, and it's a different number. So right there, people say, what? So
All
anyway, offline. So those were my only questions, to just further follow up with you face-to-face here, and I was unable to get in face-to-face. And I think just talking to you on these matters, as we were talking about ratings, really does help the ratings, because this is sexy stuff here we're talking about.
Okay.
So, that's all I have, Paul. And I'm glad David's taking he's looking at this thing from a different perspective and working with you on these things, so that's good.
This is the financial update
Yes.
through March.
Yep.
Yes.
Could you, just for the benefit of our audience,
Run through.
just from 10,000 feet up, looking down at the ground, is the town in good shape?
Okay,
Are we about to go into bankruptcy, or
No.
are we running along nicely? Just Give
Looking
us-
at the revenue picture, we are at 85% of the estimated revenue. I think that's an excellent position to be in, since we are only at the end of March. There was still 4 more months to go.
3 months. But you would expect 75%, but
Right, sorry,
of
3
budget, and we're at 85% of budget.
Right, so I think, I think we're in good shape in the revenue. I don't see any serious under collections. I think some of them are lagging a little bit behind, but they're made up for by others that are ahead. So at the bottom line, I think we're in good shape. The expenditures, we're at 30% remaining of the budget, where with 3 months left, it, should be
25%.
any more than 25 is a good number. I think the trouble spots we've already isolated. The legal counsel is getting a supplemental funding at town meeting. The police salaries is getting overtime. And we went over the expense line, and it might be a little over, but not by enough to have to bring it to town meeting, I don't think. Because there still is $42,000 in the reserve fund transfer account.
But you might want to check with Mark on that, because that's their budget.
I know,
So you can't
right.
assume that it's,
No, I'm just,
they're gonna be amenable to that.
right, but looking forward at all the budgets that, I know we need.
You need
It-
snow
it
and ice
seemed there's-
supplementals, you
yeah.
need the usual
Those are being done
supplemental
at
stuff
town
you've
meeting.
identified. You have some HR stuff,
Right.
benefit stuff.
So I think, looking at the bottom line, even with the overruns that we're having, we're still at 37% remaining, so I think we're in good shape there. So I think overall,
And
We're-
the school,
we're
like,
watching-
for the region, you're just right at the
the region
The
is purely a
annual
monthly assessment, so
assessment.
we
And so
pay
then
it
it's
out
Pine
once a
Hill,
month.
whether Pine Hill's doing anything
Pine Hill,
worthy of concern, and they're looking pretty good, right?
and they haven't notified me of anything unexpected that's come up, so they're feeling very comfortable with their budget.
So the challenge with them becomes encumbrances and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, right?
Yep.
In the summer, 12-month pay versus 9-month.
Right.
So the town continues in good shape,
I think
continues
we
to
are.
be well-managed.
The lights are still on?
The lights are on,
The numbers are
paid
indicating
all
that
our
our
bills.
our plannings and our projections are pretty well
Yeah, we've
on mark.
looked forward on all of the big budgets that could cause us problems, and I've gone over them with the police station. I have to go review some numbers with Ed, but I think
So you'll be doing
top of
another
it.
model,
yes,
because they'll need to know the number that they're gonna recommend for free cash used to offset the deficit, right?
yeah, there's a couple of changes that are gonna happen to the model. I don't know exactly dollar-wise.
Mostly in the supplemental area. Are there any
Supplemental
budget
area,
areas?
There's one budget change, which is elderly housing. They are not going to meet the amount of income that they need to meet in order to fund their budget, so it has to be decreased by less than $4,000. Yeah, so I've had this discussion with Kitty
Yeah.
and confirmed.
But they're doing a great job of tracking that stuff.
Yeah, yep. So that's the budget change that has to be made, that I'm aware of, and then.
Oh, one question came up, which is a position we took on the OPEB stabilization fund.
Yep.
Because advisory was recommending no action,
Mhm.
and my understanding was that we're skipping a year. That in 2013, we're really missing out putting anything in,
2013.
because the 100,000 is is
For
an
next year.
appropriation for next year.
In
So the question, as I talked to Mark, is whether there's a year's timing error, or it just all falls at the beginning of the year. So we may alter our position once we're clear
In
on
the year
that.
2000, this current fiscal year, we did the transfer that was voted at last year. So we had, it's done the year
Following,
following the vote. So we did that
Okay, so-
transfer in August of 2013.
okay.
Next
And when would
year-
you do the appropriated amount, just out of curiosity? Same time period?
Probably the same time frame.
So then our motion, where we said we didn't support their no action, was based on my misunderstanding.
You wanna change that?
So I'd be happy to change that, sure. So I would move to support advisory's recommendation
And
of
to
no
rescind the
action.
prior,
And to rescind the prior vote that we took
okay?
on Article, you would know it off the top of your head,
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
30-something.
30-something.
I don't have them in front of me.
30.
Second. So the motion before us is to rescind the prior vote, which was to not support advisory's
Recommendation of no action.
and to replace that with a vote to support
Support their
advisory's
recommendation of no action, yes,
with regard to Article 30.
with regard to Article 30, yep.
And I've seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Okay?
Sorry for the confusion.
No, this is
This
This is part of the process. If you don't ask the question, you don't get the answer. Is there anything more for Ruth?
Oh, I have nothing for Ruth. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Good to see
All
you.
right.
Don't be a
Okay.
stranger.
There's a request to go into executive session, but before we do, is there anything else to come before us?
Are you adjourned or not? Or are you gonna adjourn from executive session?
We've got 2 executive sessions. There is a agenda item for topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair. And so I'm asking if there's any topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Can you give us a preview of coming attractions for future agenda items?
Actually, next Thursday's meeting looks very light, so we will have to talk about that, whether there is going to be a meeting. I think things kind of slowed down just before town meeting.
All right, but that's the last meeting before town meeting, so
Right.
I'm not, I don't support canceling a meeting.
Oh, no, we still have a few days
And it's a
for
big,
something to come in.
it's a big warrant
Yeah,
week, which could be done Saturday morning as a last resort. But
Right,
I agree. I just soon be able to have the opportunity to pre-plan for town meeting, whatever might suit our fancy next week, frankly.
yeah, we're posting an agenda, it just might
Yes.
be light.
So that's it for coming attractions. We're now gonna play some commercial messages to raise money for the town. That's a joke.
Oh, there's a COA breakfast tomorrow morning at 8:30 that I'm going to be sitting in on as the selectman.
And I saw
With a
the,
target on my back.
I saw the advertisement that said, "Come with your praise."
Oh. And questions.
So by all means, come praise Peter.
Come,
So
meet and greet.
just to clarify, once you go into executive session, you'll not be
Not returning.
returning to open session.
Is there anything that we need to vote in
No.
on the contracts that would require us to come back to vote in public?
No, not
Okay.
at this time.
All right, so then, I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss under the open meeting law, chapter 30A, section 21.2, to discuss collective bargaining with respect to the police, local 158 of the Massachusetts Police Association, half of LCIO, and CM&D, Council 93, Local 335, and also an executive session for the disposition of real estate under Section 21.3 of Chapter 30A concerning the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Is there a
I
second?
second that motion.
We will not be returning to
public session, and the chair makes a determination that the discussion of these issues in public session would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the community. This requires a roll call vote. Selectman Caruso?
Aye.
Selectman Durensis? Aye. We are going to recess to executive session. Thank you all for attending
Thanks, Kate.
and for watching. We are now in recess.